Good evening and welcome. You're watching Biz First Review 360. My name is Ravi Gamage. Let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines. Invest in East Investment Forum to boost Sri Lanka's maritime hub status in the Indian Ocean. Tumbling global oil prices cast positive and negative implications for Sri Lanka. Also coming up in the program tonight, a look at Sri Lanka's effort to regain the GSP Plus concession. And also, can air liberalization make Sri Lanka better connected with the rest of the world? Now, for the stories in detail. Government seeks to improve connectivity between the port of Colombo and the East Coast to facilitate trade and boost maritime activities.
Minister of Development Strategy and International Trade Malik Samaravikrama announced plans to create a special economic zone in Trincomalee at the Invest in East 2016 forum held in Colombo yesterday. Developing the Trincomalee harbour to work in conjunction with the Colombo port will allow Sri Lanka to be a key hub for shipping in the Indian Ocean.
A slash in oil prices will help reduce our import bill, but it can also impact our foreign remittances. Let's take a look at what an economist had to say.
Global oil prices have been on a persistent plunge since the past 2 years, with crude oil now hovering around $30 a barrel, its lowest since December 2003. Tumbling oil prices became a concern since mid-2014, with the world producing far more oil than demand. In 2015, global oil supply grew by an overwhelming 2.6 million barrels a day. In 2016, oversupply is likely to hit around 1 million barrels per day. Advances in oil and natural gas production technology, also known as hydraulic fracturing, has made the US self-sufficient in energy and less dependent on Canada, Mexico, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia and West Africa for oil imports. The International Energy Agency predicts that by 2020, US oil production will exceed Saudi Arabia's.
Conventional crude oil manufacturers, and a lot of them are in the Gulf states, the Middle East, and for them they're struggling to maintain their market share because there are new producers who have come in, like the US. So they are having to keep supply high and prices low to maintain their market share.
It is forecast that oil will remain between $30 to $40 a barrel for much of 2016, with fluctuations based on Iranian supply, strategy by OPEC and demand changes triggered by the recovery of major markets like China. But how will tumbling oil prices affect Sri Lanka? Anushka Vijayasinghe, chief economist at the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, says low oil prices will help ease the pressure of balance of payment crisis.
So Sri Lanka is a 100% oil importer. So any reductions in oil prices is a really good thing for economies like ours. One of the biggest parts of our import bill is in fact crude oil imports, and a growing economy that has more industrial activity, more consumption activity, needs more energy, and a lot of our energy is imported apart from the hydro, of course. So low oil prices is really good.
The flip side is that lower commodity prices have reduced demand for Sri Lankan exports, hurting revenue.
Big part of exports of tea go to Middle East and Russia, both of which are facing severe difficulties with the commodity price decline more broadly, and specifically on energy like oil. So that's one angle through which it's a negative impact on Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka finances almost one-third of its import bill through remittances, which is the island's highest foreign exchange earner. Economists say plunging oil prices also impact remittances, which amount for about 9% of GDP. A continuous decline in remittances can affect the economy negatively.
About 50% of our remittances come from the Middle East, and it is many countries in that region that are facing difficulties with these falling oil prices. And in fact, already you can see governments in those countries have started cutting back on welfare. You can see households having to tighten up. There's slower hiring of migrant labor.
Meanwhile, consumers await a fuel price formula which economists say would be much harder to implement during a fuel price hike.
Moving to this price formula is essential because the only way we can absorb a low oil price environment and benefit from it, but also at the same time pass through to the consumers when oil prices go up. Because otherwise, when oil prices go up and you don't pass it through, our state enterprises in petroleum will have to buffer that, and that's where it leads to huge losses in these enterprises.
Sri Lanka is one step closer to regaining the GSP Plus concession to the European Union. Tonight we take a look at how the industry is coping and the challenges ahead in regaining the concession.
Sri Lanka is in talks with the European Union to regain the GSP Plus concession later this year, with a new working group formed late last week to tackle human rights. EU Ambassador David Daly told a breakfast meeting in Colombo that Sri Lanka is in track to get the GSP Plus and that setting up a working group was a positive move ahead for the Human Rights Commissioner's visit next month. However, progress on compliance with international conventions to improve human rights and rule of law need to be made. Countries are required to comply with 27 international conventions on human rights, labour rights, environmental action and good governance to qualify for the GSP Plus.
It has been a tough but sincere negotiation right throughout the year. Sometimes we would say certain things on the political platform, but seriously we know that there is a whole lot of things that need to be done, and I'm really glad that he said that things are progressing well. If we can't export, we can't provide what the people of this country is expecting from the government. So therefore we are absolutely totally committed to ensure that we will do whatever it takes to get GSP Plus back.
The scheme means that Sri Lanka will be able to export goods to the EU with no added custom duties. Sri Lanka enjoyed GSP Plus benefits until the deteriorating human rights record put to an end to it in 2011, with the former government resisting compliance with international conventions on the grounds that it breached the country's sovereignty. According to estimates of the Joint Apparel Association, the suspension has cost the industry roughly $400 million each year. Experts say apparel exports to the EU grew soon after the GSP Plus scheme.
The total exports going to EU as a percentage of our overall exports has declined from 2009 onwards. In fact, soon after the GSP Plus, there was 16% growth rate of apparel exports to EU compared to 0.8% in 2005.
Sri Lanka has carved a niche as a top-quality ethical clothing manufacturer, trusted by iconic global brands such as Victoria's Secret, Speedo, Gap, Tommy Hilfiger, Marks & Spencer and Nike. The European Union accounts for 46% of Sri Lanka's apparel exports compared to 43% going to the US and 11% to others. The industry that employs over 250,000 people aims to accelerate the apparel sector to $8.5 billion mark by 2020. Industry players say regaining the GSP Plus concession is vital to reach ambitious growth targets, but time is running out.
In 2016 end, we are projected to be about $4,000. This makes us upper middle income economy. If we reach the status for 3 years, the EU will withdraw the GSP Plus and the GSP given to us. So we have a very, very short time period to enjoy this benefit. If we delay in submitting the application, we will lose a lot of time. And I implore that the government should be able to put in the application as soon as possible.
However, the deputy head of the European Commission's GSP and Sustainable Development Unit, Mr. Nikos Semis, told Newsfirst that the application process takes time.
This will take about 6 months, And then the European Commission, the President of the Commission and the College of Commissioners will take a decision. This decision of the Commission then has to be reviewed by the two other institutions of the EU, which is the Council of Ministers, which is the ministers of the 28 governments of the EU, and of course the European Parliament. So they have the final say on an application by a beneficiary, in this case Sri Lanka. The whole process takes between 8 to 10 months, and this is what has happened also with all the other applicants.
Can air liberalization help Sri Lanka attract more travelers and investors? That story is coming up right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching BizFirst Review 360. Sri Lanka is well connected with neighboring India and East Asia. But can air liberalization make Sri Lanka better connected and make air travel cheaper?
Growth prospects for Sri Lanka's tourism sector remains encouraging, with the government now targeting 2.2 million tourist arrivals in 2016. But connectivity to existing and emerging source markets remain a challenge.
What Sri Lanka needs to do more than anything else is a couple of things besides what I've already mentioned. One is that we find that the airline connectivity will need to improve. The large source markets from where Sri Lanka is currently getting all its visitors, which is China and India, are not very well connected, which also leads to the fact, because of less connectivity, the airfares are high and probably is reducing the number of possible travelers who could come from these places.
Researchers say Sri Lanka should focus more on air liberalization to attract more airlines, to boost connectivity and to make travel cheaper.
There is no multilateral agreement on air services. The liberalization of air services is all happening on a bilateral scale. The problem is, I think, within South Asia there are political issues which are hampering this process of liberalizing. One is on the security side, and then you get the political issues with India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and all. So those type of things have limited the liberalization of air services in the region.
Now a look at other stories on the show.
Organizers of edX Expo 2016, the largest higher education and career fair in the island, urged the government to make sweeping changes to the education system in a bid to transform human capital to a knowledgeable and competitive workforce relevant for the economy. The total number of employed persons in Sri Lanka was estimated to be around 8.6 million during the third quarter of 2015, with the unemployment rate being 5% during the same period. A striking feature is the rate of unemployment among the youth. Unemployment among the youth between the ages of 15 to 24 stood at 23%. The highest unemployment rate among all age groups in Sri Lanka. By level of education, the highest unemployment rate of 10% was reported from the GCE A-level group and above. edX says around 18% of the 350,000 students who enter the education system annually drop out without acquiring any life skill.
As per varying statistics, about 140,000 to 150,000 enter the job market every year, with a majority of them being unprepared to face challenges. Only a fraction of them are work ready to meet current demands. I am made to understand that most of these youth are attracted to become three-wheel drivers, with 1.4 million of them literally on the roads, causing huge congestions. I wonder if the three-wheel industry has overtaken the government as the biggest employer in the country.
Higher number of school dropouts has resulted in a large informal sector, a source that feeds the Middle East and unskilled labor and domestic workers.
There are other youth who want to leave the country overseas as unskilled laborers and housemaids. As a result, in overseas labor markets, Sri Lanka is known as a supplier of housemaids and unskilled laborers. In a country where taxpayers' money is spent in offering free education by the state since 1947, can we not transform these youth to be work-ready in productive sectors of the national economy and support the growth momentum in our own country?
The mismatch between the education system and the growing demand of the economy has also created problems for some of the vital sectors of the economy.
Productive sectors of the economy, on the other hand, experience severe skills deficits to the extent they find it extremely difficult to function. Construction, plantations, hospitality industries are few examples. Some are proposing to import foreign workers to sustain certain industries.
edX 2016 showcased career and higher education and vocational training opportunities, a platform for youth to seek local and overseas tertiary education, ended this week in Colombo.
Prestige Automobile introduced BMW i3, a purpose-built electric vehicle with maximum safety, and BMW i8, the most progressive plug-in hybrid sports car to the local market.
We design one that possesses a perfect balance of beauty and intelligence. We engineer one with performance, tempered by technology that sustains our planet.
Prestige Automobile says BMW i3 is the first electric vehicle capable of achieving zero tailpipe emissions.
Today marks the official launch of BMW i in Sri Lanka, and this is the beginning of a new era of mobility in this country. And therefore, also Heinz Reuter mentioned it before, we have only in this region only launched the two cars in Singapore. So therefore, this is a historical moment as Sri Lanka now joins the world-leading countries and the world-leading cities.
So we are very happy that BMW is also present here, and so with Prestige BMW they invested 75 million rupees to build up excellent service, to offer you the facilities you need, and Prestige is also building up the recharging centers you need island-wide to keep these cars running.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing all new BMW i3 and BMW i8.
Sri Lanka is one of only 2 countries in the Asian region to have access to BMW's I range of cars.
Well, that's all the news we have for you tonight. Make sure you join us again next Friday at the same time. I'm Ravi Gamage. Good night.